Jake Julien, a name that might not be familiar to casual fans, but for those of you in the know, this guy has been tearing it up in the CFL. Today, we're diving into his journey from college standout to NFL hopeful and why I think he's the best punter the CFL has seen in nearly 2 decades. So let's start from the beginning. Jake Julien was born in Barrie, Ontario, and, like a lot of Canadian kids, he grew up dreaming of making it big in the CFL. He almost ended up at York University, but instead he got a late offer to walk on with the Eastern Michigan Eagles in the NCAA's Division 1. That's a pretty big opportunity, right? And look, he made the most of it. In 2019, Julien earned second team All-MAC honors, and then again in 2020 when he was also nominee for the Ray Guy Award, which goes to the best punter in college football. His average that year, 44.3 yards per punt, which was the best in the conference and 8th in the entire country. Not bad for a kid from Barrie, eh? After 4 years at Eastern Michigan, where he finished with a career average of 43.4 yards per punt, tied for the highest all-time at the school, Julien was picked by the Ottawa Redblacks in the 4th round of the 2021 CFL National Draft. But he didn't come straight to the CFL. COVID gave all players an extra year of eligibility, and Jake went back for one more season. Now, let's fast forward to 2022. Julien went undrafted in the NFL, but he wasn't down and out. He signed with the New England Patriots as an undrafted free agent, but unfortunately, incumbent Jake Bailey held down the fort and Julien couldn't crack the final roster. After that, he spent the rest of the year waiting for the right NFL opportunity that just didn't come. But things changed in 2023 when the CFL came calling. The Ottawa Redblacks brought him in for training camp and preseason, but they let him go right before the season started. At the same time, Edmonton was in desperate need of a punter. They had Michael Domagala and Greg Hutchins splitting reps, but neither were really full-time punters, and Julien played much better than both of them in the preseason. Julien was signed shortly before the season started, and they gave him the starting job. He had a decent rookie year, starting all 18 games, but his stats weren't exactly setting the world on fire. He punted 121 times with an average of 45.4 yards per punt, which ranked him 8th in a 9-team league. To put that in context, the league average was about 46.8 yards per punt, so yeah, not amazing, but the potential was definitely there. It wasn't until week 5 when he started to flash that potential. He punted 9 times for an average of 52.1 yards per punt, and had 5 of those punts over 50 yards. In his best game, week 13, he averaged 55.6 yards on 5 punts, with 80% of them going over 50 yards and 40% of them landing inside the 20-yard line. Those 2 games were a huge sign of things to come. And boy, did those flashes turn into something huge in 2024. I don't think anyone expected the guy who I ranked 8th last year to completely blow up this season, but here we are. Through 17 games, Jake Julien has punted 101 times with a ridiculous average of 54.1 yards per punt. Just to give you some perspective, that's 4 yards more than the next closest punter and 6 yards more than the league average. He's had 69 of his 101 punts travel over 50 yards, which is almost 70%. The CFL average is only 42%, so Jake is absolutely dominating in this regard. Now, let's talk a specific game, Week 16 of the 2024 season. Jake Julien had 4 punts for an average of 61.8 yards per punt, marking him 5th all-time for the highest single-game average in CFL history. This is just nuts. Not to mention, he's on pace to break the all-time record for punting average in a single season, which was set back in 2005 by John Ryan at 50.6 yards. I mean, this guy is rewriting the punting record books, and it's not even being talked about. So if you're not convinced by now that Jake Julien is that guy, let's compare him to some of the NFL's best from 2023. If you stack his 2024 average against the NFL, he would have led the league by 1.5 yards, outpacing guys like Ryan Stonehouse and Brian Anger. And I know what you might be thinking. Sure, he's got a big leg, but can he control it? Well, let's address that. I've heard people say that Julien isn't reliable enough directionally and that he's just a field flipper that can't pin opponents deep. But let's take a look at week 9 of the 2024 season. He punted 6 times, averaging 52 yards per punt, with 5 of those punts landing inside the 20-yard line, including 2 of them that went inside the 10. And back in week 16, when he averaged that incredible 61.8 yards per punt, 3 of his 4 punts were inside the 20, with 2 inside the 10-yard line. So tell me again how he's not accurate. And here's another thing. Julien leads the CFL with 29 of his punts landing inside the 20-yard line. That's 29%. Is it elite by NFL standards? Maybe not, but it's very, very good. And let's not forget that the CFL field is bigger and there's no fair catch rule, so returners have way more room to operate and every single punt is returned. Even with all of that, Julien is still pinning guys deep, and while PFF won't release the CFL numbers to the public, I would argue that his hang time is up there with the best of them, and I have no issue saying that he would be able to force fair catches on almost every punt, which in turn would help raise his already impressive net average of 38.7 net yards per punt, which leads the CFL. So, where do we go from here? The season isn't over and the numbers could change, but I'll say this: Jake Julien is NFL ready. He's the best punter the CFL has seen in almost 2 decades, and if he doesn't get a shot down south, it's a crime. But selfishly, I'd love to see him stick around and keep crushing records in the CFL. Edmonton, if you know it's good for you, you'd better lock this guy up before the NFL comes swooping in. So what do you think? Is Julien ready to take that next step and try his hand or foot in the NFL? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe for more special teams content. If you really want to help the channel grow, the best thing you can do is drop a comment and watch another one of my videos. It really helps. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.